The Phillies fall short in the deal for Garrett Crochet. He's headed to Boston to join the Red Sox. Plus, we've got some other names swirling around the team. Roki Sasaki, Nolan Arenado, Kyle Tucker. We've got that, plus Jim Salisbury joining us today. And, of course, we're back to do some trivia. All that and more coming up today on PHLY Phillies podcast. The hunt for Garrett Crochet because he's headed to the Boston Red Sox. So now what will they do? Who will they go after? We've got to talk about that. Plus, we've got Jim Salisbury joining us on the show today. Some Phillies trivia. Happy Thursday. Hopefully you're off to a terrific start to your Thursday. We've got Tyler Zulli, Renee Washington, and sitting in with us, JP Zapata.
Yo.
Intro.
JP in the house.
JP, I just want to let you know I don't get that every day when we do the show. It's just Tyler Zulli. Okay. So you're...
I literally just go, Tyler Zulli, JP Lynch.
Yep, I just get my name said, and then we move on.
I'm Renee Washington. I'm joined by Tyler Zulli and JP Zapata.
See, now I feel special.
It's the OG Union crew. Here we go.
It is the Union.
How about that?
It is the OG Union crew reunited. And as Jamie's still on vacation, we've got the trio, the ultimate trio, back together. Listen, guys, we've got lots and lots to get into. And unfortunately, as people in the chat are already talking about what are the Phillies going to do, the frustrations. Yes, we saw the news break yesterday, around 3 o'clock, mid-afternoon, we got the news of Garrett Crochet. Now, on the show, Tyler, I remember we had spoken that the reports were coming out, the Crochet deal was close. We didn't know who he was going to, but we kept hearing reports that it was getting closer, that the deal was going to be done. Well, the deal is done as Garrett Crochet is headed to the Red Sox. Now, the Red Sox and White Sox involved in this trade were able to ship off a number of different prospects. So the Red Sox obviously get Garrett Crochet. The White Sox get Kyle Teal, who's their number 25 overall prospect, a catcher. They also get outfielder Braden Montgomery, number 54 prospect for them. Infielder and Chase Mydroth. They get Wickelman Gonzalez. So 4 different prospects that were shipped to the White Sox in return. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. In return for Garrett Crochet. We knew that the White Sox were seeking a number of prospects. And before we even talk about why the Phillies fell short, it was, as we knew, going to come down to which team had the amount of prospects to be able to get the deal done for Garrett Crochet. And it was Red Sox, White Sox that locked in the deal.
Yeah, I think the conversation, and I'm surprised because most people lose their minds when prospects get traded in either like you can't trade this guy or trade everybody, burn the boats. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of Phillies fans this morning and this afternoon have kind of been on an agreement where it was a large quantity of prospects to give up. And not only that, but you talk about Kyle Teal being the number 25 prospect. If you go to the White Sox prospect pool now, Kyle Teal is their number 2 overall prospect. They now have 2 of the top 9 catching prospects in all of baseball between Kyle Teal and Edgar Caro. They get their number 5 prospect in Braden Montgomery. And then the next 2 guys, Mydroth and Gonzalez, are 13th and 14th on the White Sox list. Mm-hmm. So I kind of play this into, it's hard to comp because not every prospect pool is the same. But you're talking about giving up what now is the White Sox 2, 5, 14, and 15 prospects for Garrett Crochet. Mm-hmm. I think most Phillies fans this morning woke up saying, I don't think I would have done that.
Yeah.
Because the Red Sox prospect pool, I believe, was better ranked than the Phillies prospect pool. Now, the Phillies, of course, weren't going to part ways with Andrew Painter. They were likely not going to move Aiden Miller. Yeah. They seemed that Justin Crawford was the starting point, and the White Sox said, no thanks, we'll find other options. But in terms of like numerical rankings of these prospects, I think most Phillies fans today woke up saying that was a haul. Now, do I know what's going to happen with these guys? Of course not. Nobody knows what's going to happen with prospects. But we talked about Kyle Teal, and it was like, are the Red Sox going to be willing to move Kyle Teal? Are they going to be willing to move Marcelo Mayer? Those were the two guys.
Yep.
They seemed bullish on Mayer. They weren't going to move him. Teal, I'm surprised they moved. He was their first round pick just a couple years ago, but that was the price of doing business. I think most Phillies fans today weren't going to make that move.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great point you bring up, because in reality, what the White Sox were looking for was not just one or two prospects. They did want to start and continue to add to that rebuild that they're under. And so for them to seek so many prospects, that is where the Phillies couldn't find a deal that made sense. And I know Matt Gelb had shared earlier, or yesterday, I should say, regarding the prospects that were included in that summer attempt for the Phillies. Because as we know, obviously this winter meeting time period was not the only time, or even this offseason, the Phillies were actively trying to get a deal done for Garrett Crochet back during the season prior to the trade deadline. And in that deal, it was Aiden Miller and Justin Crawford that were actually included in a trade. And the White Sox said no deal. So I'm actually pretty surprised, because you're giving up two of your three top prospects in a deal. And because the White Sox also wanted Andrew Painter, they didn't want the deal. And if I'm looking at this, I actually feel like a deal with Aiden Miller and Justin Crawford. And listen, I can't say I follow the Red Sox prospects nearly as close as the Phillies prospects.
No, you're not on the Woo Sox?
Not going to claim it, and I'm not even going to. So I'm saying this.
Not a Portland Sea Dogs fan?
I'm going to say this strictly from the perspective of where they're ranked and where they're ranked. I, in my opinion, would think, even without Andrew Painter, Aiden Miller and Justin Crawford could be, especially if you have a third prospect in there, enough to get a deal done for Garrett Crochet in comparison to the four prospects that the Red Sox sent. But knowing that the Red Sox do have a, as you talk about their farm system in comparison, that is something you have to take also into consideration of where they sit in terms of their farm system overall. And as Dave Nabrowski was mentioning, he didn't feel comfortable as an organization moving on from top prospects for Garrett Crochet. And as he said, he was like, there's only 2 years of service with Crochet. You sign a player long-term, but you could sign him long-term, but there's only 2 years of service guaranteed. So you're going to move on from prospects. And with Aiden Miller, Andrew Painter, and Justin Crawford, it's all the expectation. They're going to be big league ready. For Painter, especially as soon as the season, you're not moving on from them for a guy that's only going to be a guaranteed 2 years of service. So I understand, as Dave Nabrowski did come out and make comments on why the Phillies did not land Garrett Crochet, the things he was saying was there's a few reasons behind it. One is, the White Sox do have a good group of players. The Phillies have 4 quality starting pitchers and a young pitcher, obviously Andrew Painter, coming right behind, that they really like as a bundle, and they don't want to give up any of that talent. They don't want to mess up the top prospects that they have. They want to lean into the farm system and the development that they've got, and they don't want to move on from those guys that are right there on the verge of being major league ready. So I understand both sides of it, but it just comes across, as we've been saying time and time again, the White Sox are being very, very meticulous. I won't say picky, but meticulous in making sure they got the deal they wanted to get. They were not settling for anything less.
Well, and you and I talked about it, like every time that a major event passes without a trade happening, the trade value dwindles because of how long you're going to have a guy under the team control for, how long you're going to be able to utilize him in that postseason push. Remember, you and I were talking about yesterday, like the 3 postseason pushes versus the 2, right? The 2 years of team control versus the 2.5 years of team control. When those major milestones move, you are going to reevaluate your trade proposals. And so Garrett Crochet is under 2 years of team control at ridiculously team-friendly money for the type of pitcher that we expect Garrett Crochet to be. The guy that we saw last year, that stuff plays in every ballpark, in every city across America. Barring injury, I think this guy is going to be like full tilt, Cy Young candidate type pitcher in 2025. I think he's that good. But with that being said, the thought process would have been a new deal probably is included in the conversations somewhere in the near future. I wouldn't be shocked if Boston is ready to have extension conversations. Not saying that, and it wouldn't be an extension that takes hold this year, obviously. You would use, you would start it in 26, or, I don't think you'd push it to 20, to, the engagement to 27, where
Yeah.
you, as you brought up, he would eventually become an unrestricted free agent. You don't want this guy testing the market if you're giving up this many this high of prospects and this many prospects for him. My guess is they're going to have conversations very, very shortly about a contract extension that would start in 26.
Yeah,
And what do those
exactly.
numbers look like? I don't know. I really don't know, because there is something to be said for a team blowing out a year of arbitration or blowing out 2 years of arbitration to give you that deal. So the team comes to you and says, hey, we want to sign you to the long-term deal now. We want to get you paid, but work with us a little bit, because instead of you making your pennies on the dollar arbitration deal, we're going to get you top of the line starter money.
Sure.
But if we give it to you now, will you take 22 a year versus 28 a year? Will you take 25 a year versus 35 a year? You know, because we've seen it, right? The pitching numbers that have come through this offseason are astronomical, and they're going to continue to grow. Corbin Burnes is going to get a ton of money.
Yeah.
Max Fried got a ton of money. Like, guys that shouldn't get paid what they're going to get paid are getting paid and have gotten paid. Is Nate Eovaldi worth $25 million a year? I don't think so. I think he's a good pitcher.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a $25 million a year pitcher. God, you're probably tired of me saying the name Nick Pivetta. He's going to get paid a lot of money for no particular reason. So, like, the pitching market, and especially the starting pitching market, is super inflated right now. So if you can say, hey, work with us, we'll get you your deal. We'll get you your 7-8 year deal. But we want the first 2 or 3 years to be maybe slightly below market value, but way more than you're getting now. I would expect Crochet and his agent and the Red Sox to be working on something quickly. So yes, it's 2 years of cheap control, but you're also not playing a video game where you just say, ride it out and we'll sign you in free agency because my slider's higher up than the Yankee slider, right? So there is a back and forth to this thing where you're balancing the prospect pool you gave up, the money you're about to spend, the guy you expect to be a top of the line rotation piece for not just the next 2 years, but 6, 7, 8 years. What, is it a 4-year deal? Is it a 6-year deal? I mean, 30-year-old Max Fried just got, what did he get, 7 years?
8 years, 218.
Max Fried just got 8 years. He's $30 million. Corbin Burnes, he's 30 years old, excuse me. Corbin Burnes, who I think is much better than Max Fried, is also 30. He's probably going to get 7 or 8. You got Garrett Crochet young.
Yeah.
Team controlled, cheap. They're going to work a deal together, but I think that this is going to be, you're going to see a pretty lengthy extension probably in the next couple of months, I would think. Maybe it doesn't happen right away, but I wouldn't be stunned if it happens before the season starts.
Yeah, and to your point, for the Red Sox, their chief baseball officer, Craig Breslow, did actually come out and say exactly that. This is the type of move that the Red Sox wanted to make. And they also know that given the fact that Crochet does only have 2 arbitration-eligible seasons left, they are actively looking, as he said, to get that extension done in 2025. They're looking to get that done this upcoming year to make sure they can lock in Garrett Crochet. So their plan was to bring him in, knowing that he's under control for the next 2 seasons, get that extension to happen. But also for the Red Sox, unlike the Phillies, I think this was also a difference maker. The Phillies don't have as deep of a farm system as the Red Sox do, in my opinion. And so for the Red Sox, as Breslow was saying, this is the type of move that we had the ability. We still have a ton of quality and really good players in our farm system. So we were afforded and able to sacrifice, that potential future value to be able to bring in a guy like Crochet that allows their team to be better. And now they're going to continue to build around Crochet because the Red Sox have already come out and said adamantly they're not done yet. In fact, some of the names they're still looking to pursue, even with bringing in Garrett Crochet and already having players like Cutter Crawford and Tanner Houck and different guys in their rotation, they're still actively looking to bring in a Corbin Burnes. They're still actively looking to bring in possibly an Alex Bregman, an Anthony Santander. There are some other major names that the Red Sox have been linked to, even with the Garrett Crochet deal done. They're still not done themselves, but for the Phillies, and I know you guys are talking about in the chat, Dave Dombrowski has also mentioned on his side, neither are the Phillies. They aren't done yet either. They have, of course, wanted to, and to go back to the prospects aspect for the Phillies, they are very interested in and knowing that there are a lot of teams that are curious and reaching out about Andrew Painter. By no surprise, the Phillies are understanding, and actually Dave Dombrowski said, we can get a lot of players for Andrew Painter, but I think I'll wait it out the next few months to get him with us It's something you weigh every single time something comes up. You know, the number one priority, as he mentioned, is to win, but he said, I can't tell you that it's always to win at any cost because you've got other guys you really do like. You have to find that balance. You obviously want to win, especially this is a win now team, but you don't want to sacrifice too much. And now you are messing up for the future in terms of your prospects. So the Phillies not done, and we do have to get into some more around what they're looking to potentially do because even though they missed out on Garrett Crochet, there are other names out there. I know you guys are talking about Kyle Tucker in the chat. There's some other names out there we've got to hit on as well for what the Phillies are doing. But first, let's take a quick break and tell you about our friends here at PHLY. And this year, this holiday season, I should say, has been very plagued with the flu, pneumonia. We've had people dropping like flies even here at PHLY. I've got tons of friends and people that I know that have said, oh, I got the flu. I'm out of commission. I can't make it to the holiday party. I can't come hang out. I can't do, I'm home down bad for a few days. Well, you don't want to miss out on all the fun this holiday season. And so with Rite Aid, you can be proactive and making sure you stay ahead of all the cold and viruses that are going around. And there's a number of ways you can do it. First of all, it's stocking up on making sure you get things like hand sanitizer, wipes, cleaning products. Keep your areas sanitized and clean. Also, stocking up on any over-the-counter medication. I myself did that, getting my Mucinex and all the nasal sprays and cough drops, tea and whatever else you need to stay proactive for any cold, but then even making sure to take advantage of their vaccines they have at Rite Aid. It's so convenient to be able to protect you and your family from colds and definitely viruses like the flu. And according to CDC, everybody should get a flu shot every year. And in addition to those annual flu shots, you're also making sure that you're protecting your family. 75% of children get a more mild version of the flu once they have a flu shot. So you also want to make sure that you are taking advantage of the chance to be able to protect you and your little ones. So whether it's the flu shot or even taking advantage of getting the pneumonia vaccine, because the CDC does recommend for 50 and older, you get a vaccine. The age used to be 65. It's now 50 and older. To get your pneumonia vaccine, you want to make sure you're staying very proactive so you can enjoy all the great things we love about this holiday season. So it's convenient, and you can, whether you want to walk in or check it out online, you can get it done the same day, which we love, love, love to see. So if you are interested yourself in getting any sort of vaccines, don't worry, you can get vaccinated easily with our friends over at Rite Aid by just walking into your local Rite Aid or scheduling online at riteaid.com. And if you're unsure which vaccines you may need or your kids may need or your spouse or whoever else you're asking about, you can ask your pharmacist for a personal recommendation. Again, stop by your local Rite Aid today. Stay healthy, guys, out there. Be safe, be healthy, so we can enjoy these holidays, okay?
Yeah, 1975 was a long time ago, Renee. Just give you some things that happened in 1975. The Cincinnati Reds won the World Series over the Boston Red Sox. Gerald Ford was the president in 1975, and the price of gas was about 53 cents a gallon. Well, a lot has changed in those 50 years. One thing that hasn't changed is the great taste and amazing quality of our friends over at Miller Lite. Yes, they're celebrating their 50th birthday next year, and they don't stop what they're doing just because the world changes. You know why? Because they've made a great beer. 96 calories, fewer carbs, and an incredible taste. Sometimes you just want a beer that tastes like a beer, and Miller Lite has you covered. I know it's the holiday season, and when you have people over, friends and family and loved ones, sometimes you have to go out to different stores and different places to buy 17 different drinks because nobody likes the same thing. But I can promise you, everybody at your holiday party, if they're looking for a great drink, will have a Miller Lite in hand and will not complain about it because it is an excellent choice for all occasions. And yes, they are celebrating their 50th birthday in just a few weeks. Miller Lite keeps it simple. They have unbeatable quality, great taste, and just 96 calories. It's the beer that strips away everything that you don't need and holds on to what matters most. And if you don't have to choose what's best, that's the best part. Miller Lite has great taste and is less filling. It tastes like Miller time. To get Miller Lite delivered right to your door, visit MillerLite.com/PHLY Phillies, or you can find it pretty much anywhere that sells beer. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories per 12 ounces. Fewer calories and carbs than premium regular beer.
All right. Well, I know we are disappointed to see that the Phillies did not have a chance to lock in Garrett Crochet. That was one of those moves that we've been talking about, feels like for a very long time, that made a lot of sense for them. And obviously you could see the immediate impact he could have had to help the Phillies. But as we have been talking to here on PHLY Phillies every single day, especially this offseason, there are other names. So the Phillies did lock in, as we talked about earlier this week, Jordan Romano, which was a nice one-year deal. Hopefully you can get that 2021 and 2023 version of Jordan Romano, where he was an all-star and one of the best closers and relievers around the league. But as Dave Dombrowski mentioned, even though they fell short on Garrett Crochet, they're not done yet. They did say...
I'm available.
Oh, boy.
Get my arm loose.
Dave did... no, you're not available. You've got a 1-month-old that needs you every second of the day outside of here, so you're not actually
Come
available.
to Citizens Bank Park. He'll be like 6 months old by the time the season rolls around.
Dave Dombrowski did say that there have been, and there's been reports that the Phillies have had a couple of different conversations with teams and players that got quite heavy Tuesday. No deal was finalized, but they've been in some conversations, having some talk with teams. And it's saying, of course, they didn't feel pressured. You know, there's no deadline. Even though the winter meetings are over, there is no deadline for the Phillies. So Dave was saying, I wish we could have, or I wish we would have maybe done a little bit more, but it's not done either. And one of the things that they talked about that you have to be careful of is there are a couple of different conversations going that were quite heavy that didn't happen. And then all of a sudden it's what about this? What about this? And it's like, hold on, let's take a step back. We don't have to force anything. Let's just wait and see what happens. Some of them are free agents, and you can see if you're swimming in the free agent waters right now, you're swimming in deep waters. So with what we've been looking at,
what
we
is going
haven't
on with
wanted
people with
to
the
do
swimming analogies?
There have been so many swimming analogies. Scott Boras had some swimming analogies.
Yeah, talking about putting your
Dave's
swim
had
trunks on.
Apparently, everybody wants to go swimming. Is the vibe I'm getting,
Just
and
keep
I don't know why
Just
Dallas.
go hang out go to the beach.
But Dallas doesn't make you want to go
Weirdos.
swimming. It's not like it's warm. I mean, it's warmer down there, but it's not swimming season. I don't know why everybody's talking about. Everybody's in a swimming state of mind. But as Dave is essentially saying, and a long ways of getting to the point of, they're not in a rush. The Phillies are taking their time. I do feel like with the winter meetings, it's such a short few days. It flies by so fast. And so from the outside looking in, you're eagerly wanting moves to happen, especially as you're seeing other teams making moves and free agent signings and trades. But in reality, they've got a long offseason. There is no rush. The Phillies can take their time and really, you initiate and have some of those early conversations at the winter meetings. And now, like, go back home, sleep on it, eat on it, watch some TV, maybe go swimming because everyone wants to go swimming. And then you can feel better about whatever you decide, because there are some other names out there, Tyler, that I want to hit on before we bring Jim on to talk more about the winter meetings. Obviously, we've talked a lot about someone like Roki Sasaki. And I know in the chat, Joe Fisher, what's up, Joe? You said, Roki could get him, but will they? We don't know if they will. Roki is a 23-year-old Japanese pitcher, is one that Dave Dombrowski did say the team does indeed plan to have a presentation to Roki Sasaki.
They should.
And they're hoping that they're on his short list, because his agent did come out mentioning how, well, we don't know if his agent, we don't know how much they've actually talked, because whatever, that's not our problem, not my problem, not involved, that he is interested in a smaller market team. That a smaller market team would make sense for him, I should say.
Well, then the Phillies are out.
Correct. But I'm like, smaller than what? Like, how small are we talking?
Smaller than LA? That's every team.
Are we talking smaller than LA? Are we talking like small
talking
team
Oakland?
that's like bottom? Right. Are we talking team that's bottom of the league?
Sacramento?
Right. Like, how
Nomads?
small are we talking? Philly's not a small market, but it's smaller than some. So his agent Joel Wolf, I don't know what that means. But anyways, Dave Dombrowski did say they're ready to make a presentation to him. They are interested in pursuing him. They're going to shoot their shot. And he did also clarify that doesn't mean they're going after, any starting pitcher that's available on the market, but they feel like a 23-year-old Sasaki is one, much like Yamamoto last year, they have to push their chips in on.
Yeah, and as we talked about yesterday, like, monetary restrictions aren't a problem for any team, right? You can't just bully your way into the market and say, hey, here's 7 bazillion monopoly dollars. Let's make a deal, right? Because there's a cap on how much money they're allowed to spend and how much any team's allowed to spend. But like, every team should be invested in this guy because of that exact scenario where there is a cap on how much you're able to sign him for because of his professional contract limitations and what he's, technically listed as. But like, you're talking about a guy who in the last 2 years, actually the last 3 years, you can even take it to a 2.02 ERA, a 1.78 ERA, a 2.35 ERA, throwing about 300 and some odd innings in Japan. Like, the strikeout numbers are off the charts. He's striking out 12, 13 and 11 strikeouts per 9. And people are saying, the one thing that I see people talking about is like, well, the velocity dipped a little bit. That could also be intentional, right? Like that could be done for arm preservation. And when you say the velocity dipped from he's consistently hitting 100 to throwing 97, 96, 97, he's still in an elite air. This kid's stuff is so good. And I think his fastball is the second best pitch. His splitter is gross.
Yeah.
Like it falls off the table. We talked about Kodai Senga's that ghost forkball and how nasty it is. Well, take the ghost forkball and put some extra velocity to it and further like vertical drop, right? Like that rotation that goes this way. It's fall off. I mean, it's completely fall off the table. The stuff is disgusting. The kid is good. He's going to be 23 years old. You can have any team in the league can have a play at this because of the monetary, valuation of what he's able to sign for. I don't know what would prompt him to want to sign in a smaller market. And when you say smaller market, like, again, what does that dictate? Is he talking, when they say smaller market, are they talking about, Milwaukee, Cincinnati?
Right, and is it
or
smaller?
are you talking about Pittsburgh, Tampa, like the bottom feeder markets? Like,
correct.
I don't know.
I don't know how you define that. Are we talking financially? Are we talking wins? Are we talking how much they spend? Like, there's a lot of things that just is very vague to me. But it does give me some hope. Even though we've been hearing him connected to the Padres because of Yu Darvish, it does give me some hope that maybe there's a chance he falls through the pipes and doesn't go to a team, especially like the Dodgers, who are making him a priority, allegedly, to sign.
They should.
Sure. But another guy that also we've talked heavily about, and I know Jason Martinez, you always get triggered whenever we talk pitching because you are one that's adamantly leading the charge of not having Taijuan Walker be a starter come 2025. But outside the pitching market, there's another name that I know we've talked a lot about, and it's exciting, but it's also making me a little bit nervous. Kyle Tucker. So Kyle Tucker, according to Mark Fizand, the latest as of just a couple hours ago, is that a Kyle Tucker trade is looking not only likely, but it's looking like it's going to happen soon. Because Fizand is saying that there's momentum picking up. Several teams have been in the talks with Houston Astros for a trade for Kyle Tucker. By no surprise, once it even leaked that they were open to shopping everyone, including Kyle Tucker, who's a career 274 hitter who led the AL in RBIs in 2023 at 112 RBIs, someone that is a 3-time All-Star, a Gold Glover, a Silver Slugger. I mean, the resume that he has is insane of what he can provide offensively alone before we even get to the defensive metrics. Oh, yeah, and he's just 27 years old. Kyle Tucker is absolutely being heavily pursued. Would be a great fit for the Phillies. And we've talked about how much we'd love to have him on the Phillies. Of course, last year dealt with a leg injury that had him miss some time. But unfortunately, not only is he close to a deal, reports have indicated that it seems as though the Chicago Cubs and the New York Yankees are the two most aggressive teams in pursuit of Kyle Tucker.
Yeah.
And the Cubs are apparently sitting as a favorite for a trade with Tucker. So I know Chris Summer is saying, why would the Astros trade Kyle Tucker?
He's got 1 year left on his deal.
Correct. He's got 1 year left. So a lot of teams want to go ahead and trade a player before they become a free agent so you can get something in return for him. And that is something that the Astros have shopped around, not only Tucker, but some other names as well that they'd be looking to move on from. So with 1 year left in his deal, again, his asking price is going to be around at least $300 million, if not $400, once he hits free agency.
Yeah, you're talking $30 million a year.
Yeah,
easy.
So he's someone that the Astros are looking to move on from because, yes, as Barbara Carroll's mentioning, they can't really afford him. And it's his last contract year. You want to see if you can get some players in return in a trade. But the Cubs and the Yankees as the favorites, Phillies, go get Kyle Tucker. Please go get Kyle Tucker. He'd be a great addition to this. Again, we talked about it yesterday. Yeah. I don't care if he's hitting lefties or righties.
Yeah, you figure out the lineup from there. I think this is one of those situations where you're going to gauge how much you're willing to give up without knowing that a contract extension is in hand. Like, can you have those conversations prior to say, the 1 year of Kyle Tucker would be excellent, right? But you're looking for 8 years of Kyle Tucker, right? You're thinking about what your contract is going to look like. What that contract extension is going to look like. You said, you're talking about $30 million a year easy.
Yes.
I think that's a benchmark. That's a starting point, and it's probably up from there. If you go 7 years for $30 million, it's only $210 million. And I say only, relatively speaking, of course, in baseball terms. But, you 350, 400 is plausible, right? And then you're getting up into the 40 to $45 million a year range. Like you're trying to measure how much you believe you are capable of spending in that extension and how much you're willing to give up. The Yankees are going to go full bore for this guy, which would imagine would put them, pretty heavily in the mix. I don't know how much they're willing to move, and are they willing to duplicate a one and done scenario? They already gave up Michael King and Drew Thorpe and Johnny Brito and Kyle Higashioka to get Juan Soto in the door, he walked away. Now, you can't allow that to muddle your viewpoint, but if you have it happen to you a second time and you make a move and you give up 3 or 4 prospects for Kyle Tucker and he signs elsewhere in the 2025-2026 offseason, I will laugh hysterically and feel terrible for Yankees fans, because that would be a depletion of a farm system for 2 years. And now, granted, if you win a World Series, you're going to have that different conversation. But I think teams are going to balance how much money they're able to spend in the offseason to re-sign this guy and how much they're willing to give up for a definitive 1 year of service. And then you'd have the conversations from there. Yeah,
it would be a beautiful, beautiful pipe dream of the Phillies to be able to lock in an all-star outfielder in Kyle Tucker, and very hopeful. But before we continue talking more with our buddy Jim Salisbury, I want to just take a quick moment to handle some business, because there are some other names and some other things we have to keep an eye on around the Phillies, and Jim has some updates for us. Let's take a quick pause, though, to just talk over some of our friends here at PHLY. And let me tell you about HelloFresh, the #1 meal kit across America that's providing you with some delicious farm-produced food. They are so tremendously thorough with what they provide you as a meal prep company. And I myself had a chance to check them out. Love the fact that with HelloFresh, they're giving you that farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients. They give it to you in a bag where they have everything you need, from the onions and vinegar to the peppers and carrots and potatoes. And they give you the recipes as well, so you can easily cook up whatever meal that it is that you've ordered. So it doesn't come already cooked for you. You actually are doing the prepping. So it allows you to have some seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. And it also allows you to avoid having to take trips to the grocery store. You can count on HelloFresh to really make home cooking fun, make it affordable, and make it a lot easier for you. Because I don't know about you guys, I always struggle with, I'm hungry and I have no idea what I want to eat. And with HelloFresh, it gave me a chance to try some different recipes that maybe I don't normally do outside the usual spaghetti or grilled chicken or, steak or burgers, whatever it may be, to try something a little bit different that I don't often eat. So with HelloFresh, it's convenient, it's delicious, and again, you're getting farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients right to your doorstep in a box. You get all the ingredients and recipes that you need, and they always make sure to provide you with a wide variety of options as well, because in addition to the great meals they have for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, they have hundreds of add-ons. Items such as getting packable snacks, quick breakfasts, beverages, and much more that you can get with HelloFresh. So whether you are traveling and busy, or you just are looking to try to add something extra to make sure you and your family are eating right, HelloFresh has all that you need to conveniently, easily, and financially be able to afford to have delicious meals delivered right to your doorstep. So today you can get 10 free meals at HelloFresh.com/freephillies. And again, that is applied across their boxes. You get, as a new subscriber, a chance. It does vary by plan. 10 free HelloFresh meals. You just go to HelloFresh.com/freephillies. Take advantage of that opportunity to check out HelloFresh yourself and see how delicious, affordable, and easy and convenient they make meals as the #1 meal kit company across America.
Convenience is a huge factor for me when I'm shopping, and you want to talk about our friends at HelloFresh, and I'll tell you about our friends at Empire today, because you're going to get a shop-at-home convenience that you can't beat when you're looking for new flooring. Now, if you're looking for hardwood, tile, carpet, it doesn't matter. Empire today is going to take all of the extra stuff out of the conversation. You can get inundated with a lot of different selections and styles and brands and different, everything that kind of makes you feel a little bit overwhelmed. Empire today wants to make it simplistic for you while also offering you incredible quality, incredible convenience, and a price match guarantee. One of the best things about Empire today, if you shop online, you can use the virtual floor designer, so you don't have to leave your house. All you got to do is snap a picture of the room that you want to put new flooring in, upload it to empiretoday.com, and then you can see exactly what your floors are going to look like in any space, whether it be your bathroom, your kitchen, your living room, Whatever the case may be and whatever flooring you're looking for, Empire Today's virtual floor design will help you be able to get an idea of what your floor is going to look like without having to leave the comfort of your home. Listen, shopping at big box stores can be frustrating, so Empire wants to take that out of the equation. They want to make things what's best for you. And of course, they want to make sure that you come back, you tell a friend, and you tell a friend to tell a friend. So they pride themselves on the convenient in-home shopping experience, but also their quality customer service and their incredible work from start to finish with you cannot be beat. So schedule a free in-home estimate today, and all listeners will receive $350 off when they use the promo code PHLY. Restrictions do apply. See empirettoday.com/PHLY for more details.
All right. Well, we've been talking a lot about all the, conversations, trades, deals, moves that happened at the winter meetings. But now's a great opportunity to bring in our buddy Jim Salisbury, who was down in Dallas at the winter meetings, able to check them out himself. He's also had a chance, if you haven't already, to pump out some great articles and updates you guys can get. Those all on our website at allphly.com, and read up on the latest that Jim has written for you around the Phillies. And now let's welcome Jim here, because Jim, nice to have you on the show as always. And I love all the insight that you've been able to provide so far throughout the course of the winter meetings. Now, looking back, I'd love to just start things off with big picture. What were those key takeaways you took from the Phillies over the last few days down in Dallas?
Yeah, my biggest takeaways were they addressed one need. They had a lot of talks, a lot of conversations, and just because the meetings end, those conversations don't end. They're still looking for outfield help, a bat out there, some back end starting pitching depth, and depending on where they use their resources, I think they could dive back in to the bullpen, and depending on the quality of the bullpen arm you get, it might depend on what you relinquish in assets or what you spend filling those other needs. So still a lot of balls in the air, but they added Romano, and they're looking to do more things. They're involved with a lot of big names. I do think there are a couple hurdles here for the Phillies right now. That payroll is really high, and they're going to start bumping up against that fourth luxury tax, which I don't think they want to do. I don't think, I think in the right opportunity, yeah, they would do it. But I think they're very conscious of that number, very conscious of their payroll, which is really high. And I just think they're at a stage in their roster curve, if that's a word or a phrase, where they have, some 31s, 32s, 33s, 34s, still good players, still kind of a core that could potentially win a championship, but it's up there and it's not going to be here forever. So they need people or quality players to come in and take those spots, maybe here, just in a year from now. So they're going to be, in addition to being mindful of where they are on the payroll scale, they're going to be mindful of where they are on the prospect scale. So they're really going to be really protective of some of their prospects. Not all of them. They're going to have to be willing to deal some of them to fill some of these needs, but the upper echelon guys, the guys that teams want, they're going to be very protective of, or they are being very protective of.
So you kind of played right into my next question, Jim. And does this kind of shape how they perceived potentially the Garrett Crochet market or any other trade market? Like I know that there's always a fine line between balancing your prospects and trading them and going in for your major league ready organization. But does this kind of shape how they're viewing maybe prospects 3, 4, and 5, and maybe why they're a little more hesitant to move them in a deal for a potential guy like Crochet?
Yeah, they thought the Red Sox gave up 4, 2 really good ones, 2 outstanding ones, and 2 pretty good ones. So 4, quality and quantity. And the Phillies are just reluctant to do that. They were more aggressive in the summer, but the White Sox continually would not come off Painter. And I believe, as I said on your show last week, that I think he's their one untouchable. Now, they're not going to, it would take a hell of a lot to get a Crawford, a Miller, but I think their ears would be open on certain returns. But yeah, Dombrowski yesterday, actually, I thought he was pretty open in his remarks, almost like unusually open without mentioning really any names. But it was clear that Crochet was the topic of conversation sort of on the way out the door at the winter meetings as he gathered with some of the reporters there, including myself. He just was very open about they think the window is still open here to win. And they know the window is still open here to win, but he acknowledged that some of their core is getting older, and he thinks that, a new window could develop around some of the young players they want to get here in the next year or so. So they're going to be very protective of those guys. He mentioned that they believe they have 4 quality starters in Wheeler, Nola, Sanchez, and Suarez. And because of that, they didn't want to, when they weighed the prospect cost that it would be for another top arm, they didn't want to do that because they already thought they were pretty strong in that starting pitching area. So I think that was kind of illuminating on the Crochet front. And I wrote about that on the website. It's up there now. So again, it doesn't sound like it sounds like they think they'd love to have more pitching. And would they love to have an elite arm? Who wouldn't? But at all costs and giving up the next wave of potentially pretty good Phillies, they don't want to do that. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, it does. And as you mentioned, and Dave also touched on this as well, as Dave Dombrowski was saying, they're not being impulsive. They're not feeling pressure to just jump and make a move just for the sake of making moves. But the reality is with those 3 areas that are priorities of, bullpen arm, starting pitching, and an outfielder, specifically a left fielder or center fielder, it does feel like it's going to be difficult for the Phillies, and they're going to have to be creative in figuring out a deal. As we saw with Garrett Crochet, I think it actually mirrors a lot of the reality of a guy like Kyle Tucker, for example, that if they're looking to make a trade, in reality, between the contracts and the financial, I guess you can say, challenges, as well as just some prospects prospect and Andrew Painter that you're not moving on from, it feels, Jim, like it's going to be difficult for them to find a deal, a trade they can make happen to be able to bring in a name. Again, I'm going to use Kyle Tucker since we're shifting off of Garrett Crochet. That's done. He's off the table. Someone like Kyle Tucker, that would be a great piece. How realistic is it that the Phillies are going to be able to, I hate to say this, make a trade that makes a major impact player come into the organization, in your opinion?
Yeah. And before we move off Crochet, I will say this. If an elite arm turns out to be a need in 2025, I think that there's one out there on the trade market, June, July. I think they'll pursue it and be in on it. Roster construction doesn't stop the day you walk out of the winter meetings. It doesn't stop day 1 of spring training. It doesn't stop opening day. It's always happening and evolving. So on Kyle Tucker in particular, it's kind of the 2 elements I mentioned already. The payroll considerations and the prospect cost. It's going to be a huge prospect cost. And whether or not they want to do that. And then when you bring them in with only a year of control left before free agency, and now you give up a ton of prospects for them, you're going to want to have them for a few years, right? So you're going to want to either have an extension up front or have a good idea you can get an extension when he's here. And oh, by the way, that extension it's probably 350 million or maybe even 4. I mean, we see the way numbers go. You start with all summer long. Oh, Soto's going to get 500, right? He's going to get 500. What did he get? 765. So they always go up. So the Phillies would have to be mindful of that on Kyle Tucker. Now they do have some money coming off the books. he's a great player. They want to have great players. They have they've shown they will sign great players. I certainly wouldn't rule it out. But I think a team like the Yankees or the Cubs, who you're hearing, the Cubs, might be a better. They might be able to strike a deal. Houston might find that to be a better or an easier trade partner or a smoother trade partner. So, but I would definitely keep an eye on Kyle Tucker because, like we said, the conversations don't stop, and the Phillies are going to be creative. And they're going to keep trying. I mean, trying on things, and until they, address some of the needs that they have. We'll see.
So, Jim, Rob Thompson was on MLB Network the other day, and he used two interesting phrases to describe Alec Bohm. And they said, he said, not shopping, but listening. Yeah. So when you were in Dallas, did you get any sense of the rest of the league's feel for what the value of Alec Bohm would be? And is there a pretty strong plausibility that he's probably going to be the Phillies' third baseman next year?
It certainly seems to be trending that way, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm fine with. I think he's a pretty good player. I think he's still getting better. And I think this, having his name out there all winter, if he channels that the right way and says, wow, they were willing to move me, I'm going to come into camp with a chip on my shoulder. Nobody's going to know about it. And I'm going to use it the right way, and I'm going to show them that they would have made a mistake, and I'm going to have 2 great years. Then I'm going to go make a crap load of money on the free agent market. So if he channels it the right way, it could be a good thing. But I kind of feel like the industry is lukewarm on him. That's kind of the feel I've gotten. That could change maybe when like a Bregman signs and the third base market opens up a little bit. And I still think the Phillies have Bregman in their kind of their peripheral view. So, because but that would have to be a twin move. They'd have to move Bohm, and now you have to consider that payroll issue again. You're bumping up against the 310, or the 301. So it's complicated, but yes, I think he could be back. I also think his name could start flying a little bit once the Bregman thing clears and the third base market opens up a little bit, and maybe if Arenado moves, that all those little pieces fit together and they kind of fall like dominoes. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, Nick Castellanos is a great example that he was also mentioned for a couple of off seasons, back-to-back off seasons of being on the trade block, and the Phillies moving on from him, and then he had his best, one of his best seasons in 2024. Maybe that'll be Alec Bohm's response as well. Fingers crossed that he'll have an incredible 2025 as a response to all the rumors around his name. But as you did mention, and
if I could just say, Renee, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Like when you talk about like shopping and listening, it's just it's like semantics because shopping is, hey, we want to deal Alec Bohm, but listening is you put the word out, we're listening. It's a fine line, right? It's a fine line, but their ears are open on Alec Bohm. But they would have to get something that's going to move them forward. And I'm not sure who's going to play third base because I'm not sure they're in the Bregman market. I think that, like I said, I think they're keeping an eye on it. I'm sure they have spoken to Team Boris about him. They have a bunch of Boris clients. They speak with Boris's camp all the time. I'm sure that Bregman's name has come up. But, I don't know that he's going to be here. I mean, Houston really wants him back. I think that's one of the reasons that Tucker's out there, right? So,
no, it's a great point. We talked about that yesterday. Shopping to me means you're like initiating the conversations versus listening, meaning you're open to it if somebody was to present the options and the idea to you. So it's a very fine line in the sense of what that really means.
You can have like plausible deniability. Hey, you tried to trade me. No. Teams like you, they were coming to us.
It's not us, it's them. They're just interested in bringing these ideas to us. But as you mentioned, the reality also is a guy like Alex Bregman, Kyle Tucker, you look across the league, there are some names that are expected to get major contracts that the Phillies might not be able to afford that would be solid fits for the Phillies moving forward. Now, having had a chance to be down at the winter meetings, listening to Dave, listening to Rob, listening to the different conversations going on, and as we know, the conversations do not end. What do you anticipate moving forward for the Phillies and your very early prediction around just kind of what you've learned and heard and what is actually plausible and possible for the Phillies in this offseason?
I still think they're going to bring in an outfielder. I think they would like to get a right-handed bat that they can play in left field. That's just my feel. Who is it? I just don't know.
Yeah.
I just don't know. But I do get the feel that they're bringing a right-handed. I was in favor of Tyler O'Neill. They indeed, what I was told, quote unquote, kicked the tires on him, but Baltimore made a pretty aggressive move on him. And but when the dust settles, I think we're going to see, probably a right-handed bat, maybe another arm in the bullpen. I don't know if it'll be a big ticket, but it depends on what you end up giving up in terms of either prospect or salary in left field. That might impact the quality of arm you could bring to the bullpen. But they're considering anything and everything. So, Jeff Hoffman is still out there. He remains someone that, they're keeping an eye on, but, who knows? It's all about opportunity and what comes down the pike at a certain time. But they believe they have a good team, and indeed they do. They have, that's not a bad foursome in the rotation. And I know the lineup has flaws with some of the swing and miss, and it can rear its head at some really bad times. Still a pretty good lineup. But they know they have to make some tweaks, and I'm confident that they will. Sometimes things just take time because, they have this rock and a hard place with the payroll, and they're not cheap. They're approaching $300 million in payroll. But it's like, how much more can they go? And the other rock and hard place would be the prospect cost, because they have an aging nucleus and they want to protect some of those guys so they can start moving them in as soon as next year. So,
yeah, it is definitely caught between a rock and a hard place for the Phillies right now. And I know it's not as exciting as maybe some other teams that can just spend. But as you mentioned, still a great club and still a lot to keep an eye on. And Jim, as always, we appreciate you for carving out time. I know it's been a hectic few days for you. Great job down at the winter meetings, and your articles you pumped out were fantastic. So as you touched on, for those that haven't had a chance, go check it out at allphly.com. And as always, have a great rest of your day, and we look forward to chatting with you again soon.
Okay. My pleasure, guys. Have a good one.
See you, Jim.
Thanks, Jim. See ya. Yeah, Jim did a fantastic job just recapping the winter meetings. And you guys, if you haven't already, definitely go check it out. On our website at allphly.com, because the Phillies are in a unique space, as Jim highlighted, and we've talked about it so many times here. They're not in a situation like the Yankees or the Dodgers, or even the Red Sox, that can just afford. Red Sox go trade for Garrett Crochet, and it's like, oh, we're not done. We're going to also go spend for Corbin Burnes or someone else that we're going to try to acquire. The Phillies aren't in that situation. They've already spent so much money, and I know it's discouraging, as a number of people in the chat are saying. They're not going to do anything. They're going to just run it back.
Well,
but
I think the problem
they're
is
get creative with how they're moving.
This is an organization and a front office and an ownership group that has used phrases like stupid money, that have used phrases like, I want my bleeping trophy back.
Yeah.
And you kind of set yourself up for scrutiny when you don't do one of those. Now, the trophy thing, listen, it's hard to win a World Series.
We all want
I won a World Series too, right? There's been one World Series winner every season, with the exception of, the strike shortened year in 1994 and, a couple other strike years and whatnot, over the course of baseball's history. But like, one team wins the World Series every year. It's not always the best team. It's not always the highest paying team. Last year, it happened to be the case that both of those teams were the Dodgers, and it came to fruition. But when you use phrasing like that, people have high expectations for you. And so they're at a weird crossroad of we've spent a lot of money and the results have been good, right?
Yeah.
They've been to the playoffs 3 consecutive years. They went to a World Series. They went to an NLCS. They probably should have won an NLCS and been to a second World Series, but that's a conversation for a different time. They have used, they have had a 3-year run that's been wildly successful and has also frustrated people with the way that things have ended when you're up 3-2 with 2 games to play at home against an inferior opponent. And then you lose the way you lose to the Mets.
Don't do this to us.
Listen,
we don't need this right now.
Listen, what I'm trying to say is you've done a lot of really good things over the last 3 years, and your fans want more. And I think your fans have a claim to wanting more.
Very valid.
But they're at a spot now where they don't want to go over that specific apron like Jim talked about. And they have some contracts that are, long-term deals. And I'm not saying that they're bad. And I want to get to preface this by saying they're not bad deals, but I'm saying like Bryce Harper is here for a while. Trey Turner's here for a while. So like when you sign those big deals, you limit the amount of money that you're going to be able to forecast into the future. Again, I don't want this to be taken out of context. I would sign Bryce Harper every day for the rest of my life, especially at the money that he's making.
Yeah, it's like
27, 28, $30 million for the money that he's making now. That's one of the great deals I've ever seen. But I think the frustration from fans come when you use phrasing like that, and then you recognize that we're up against an apron that we don't want to a threshold that we don't want to cross, and now we don't have a lot of flexibility.
Yeah. And that's where you have to start looking at some other names. There are some other names I just want to quickly rattle off before we get into our trivia for the day to wrap up the show. There are some other names that have also been brought up or discussed. Now, the Pirates, behind the incredible NL Rookie of the Year season that Paul Skeens had, have made it apparent that they're actually looking to add some offense, and they're open to trading from their rotation. And 2 names that they've brought up were right-hander Jared Jones, who had a 3.56 ERA in the first half of his rookie season this past year in 2024, then dealt with a lat strain. So he was sidelined for a couple of months. And so they say he's, quote, very available. And also Mitch Keller is another right-handed pitcher who is entering the second year of his 5-year, $77 million contract extension. He is one that is more affordable. And Mitch Keller is someone that is, again, under team control for 5 more years and could require a good haul in return, and actually numbers-wise, kind of impressive. So another that the Pirates are open to the idea of dealing. What?
Well, we talked about Mitch Keller last offseason, and everybody told us we were stupid.
Well, look, now the Pirates are looking to move on from Mitch Keller. So, yeah,
listen, So I expected Mitch Keller to take a bigger leap than he did this year. Mitch Keller has this issue with second halves of the seasons. His first half of the year last year was excellent. His first half of the year 2 years ago was excellent. He settled somewhere in the 4-2 stuff. I love I think his sweeper plays. He throws 7 different pitches, 6 different pitches, 7 different pitches, whatever it is. He's going to go out there and eat innings for you. He's 190 innings last year. I think he's got good stuff. I don't think he has great stuff. He's a guy who's willing to challenge you, even though he doesn't have great stuff. He's an innings eater type arm. The problem with Mitch Keller is if he doesn't take that leap that I expected this year, and he doesn't take it next year, it's a guy who's going to be making $18, $19, $20 million in 3 of the next 5 seasons or whatever the case may be. His contract is not terrible, especially considering the fact, as we've talked about, the amount of money that starting pitchers are getting in the open market. But I wanted Mitch Keller last year because I thought he was capable of making the leap. Now, after the season that he had this past year, I almost want to see the leap be made before the trade gets made, but then the leap gets made and the trade value goes through the roof. Yeah. So it's a tough balancing act to walk. Like, I like Mitch Keller, and as a 5 on this team, I would be really okay with it. But the money conversation, especially with Taijuan Walker still here making the money, it's going to be that Dave Dombrowski balancing act.
Correct. So just some names to keep an eye on again. You've got Mitch Keller in year 2 of his 5-year, $77 million contract extension. We also have talked a lot about Nolan Arenado because of the fact that Nolan Arenado has been brought up on multiple occasions. Let me just find the exact teams that he's been connected to. So Nolan Arenado is willing to approve trades to 6 teams. According to MLB.com's John Denton, and he said he's okay with being dealed to the Angels, Dodgers, Padres, Phillies, Mets, or Red Sox. Don't know the interest that any of those 6 clubs have for him, but that is Arenado's wish list. We've talked about him before. The Phillies were at least brought up. So it is interesting as we continue to kind of watch where is Nolan Arenado going. But I do want to take this quick moment to pause and say thank you to our diehards and our friends on our TV platforms, on Roku and various streaming platforms. We appreciate you for tuning in. And head on over to allphly.com to keep up with the final part of this show, as we are going to get into our trivia shortly and finish up this Nolan Arenado talk to wrap up today's edition of PHLY Phillies. So thank you for tuning in. But Nolan Arenado, guys, the trade market continues for him to be open, and his agent is also Joel Wolf, who, as we talked about, also is one that works with Roki Sasaki. So Arenado's in a situation of trying to fit, he's got his list. And I don't know if he should have a list, but he's got a list. Everyone's got.
You get the benefit of the doubt when you're a 10-time Gold Glove winner and a multiple-time All-Star and a multiple-time Silver Slugger, and you were one of the best players, if not the best player at your position for the better part of a decade. And when you sign a massive deal, you get to have a no-trade clause. And Nolan Arenado, when he signed the deal, probably deserved a no-trade clause. And, he's offensively coming down a bit. I'm not sure. Like the Nolan Arenado you saw in Colorado, the Nolan Arenado that you saw in the first 2 years of his time in St. Louis, I don't think that guy is I don't think he's that type of hitter anymore.
Sure.
The glove is still very, very good. The glove is not platinum glove, best defender in baseball, Nolan Arenado anymore. But that slip that everybody talks about, it's down from the best defender in baseball to a very good third baseman. Yeah. His I'm going to say something and you can call me hypocritical. His D-WAR last year was 1. And it's the second lowest of his career. He had a .3 in 23 D-WAR-wise, struggled defensively. And then in 2021, had a .9. But other than that, it's the second lowest of his career. And we're talking about the guy that people want to say he's defensively slipping. Yeah. Now, with all that being said, I think Nolan Arenado is still a fine baseball player. I do not want the Phillies to trade for Nolan Arenado. Yeah.
Well, Nolan Arenado, of course, does have that no-trade clause, which is why he has said, these are the only teams I'd be open to being moved to because, as he said, he wants to go to a team that he thinks is going to win now and consistently for the remainder of his career. So he wants a team that he can just jump right in and they're going to be able to win right now. And Nolan Arenado, yeah, we love that for you too. But as you mentioned, probably not with the Phillies.
Yeah, the money this year is problematic. I think after that, it starts to become a little more of a pliable contract. Let me just look it up for you just so I have the exact numbers. But I do believe it's pretty significant money this year. And then by the end, it's into the $16, $17 million range, which isn't terrible money for, I guess theoretically it's not terrible money. But I think with the money, the offensive decline, the fact that they're up against that threshold, the fact that you're going to have to give up some prospects for them, I don't envision a scenario in which the Phillies trade for Nolan Arenado. And obviously that wouldn't happen until you move Bohm or concurrently with moving Bohm.
Exactly. So there'd be some more dominoes that have to fall before Nolan Arenado would become a Philly, if that was even realistic. But I do think that as you guys are talking through, Bryce Harper's extension, Scott Boras has been asked about that. He was asked about it during winter meetings and speak on that as well. And just to quickly just harp on what Scott Boras mentioned, because he was talking on a couple of things, including Alec Bohm. He was just saying there are dynamics being discussed. It's happening essentially behind the scenes, some internal conversations that are happening around Bryce Harper's contract being restructured. Obviously, we know the Bryce Harper deal that was, at the time, the largest, a first, legendary, the biggest, is now pennies compared to what we're seeing Juan Soto alone getting, but even other guys. So Scott Boras was asked about it, did say that, John and Dave have taken the time to talk with him about it. And when they're in a place where the communication is good and understanding of what's going on, they will have those internal conversations. And then even with Alec Bohm, he also was saying that there's no indication from the Phillies that they're shopping him, but there has been obviously a lot of media discussion about it, ourselves included. But there was nothing said to Scott Boras or Alec Boehm specifically about the plans for the Phillies in the future. So Scott Boras has been speaking up for Boehm and Harper and just kind of setting the record straight, at least from his perspective of what is going on. So we are over time. Let's get into some quick trivia because, Tyler, I want to see you tortured.
I'm excited to be on this side
and
of
I'm
this
thrilled because with Jamie on vacation and you in the hot seat means you get to be tortured. But to be honest, this is your game. So it's like...
Yeah, but I don't know. So JP made this. I have no hand in this.
JP made the graphic, yes. But this is like your game that you love.
Well, sure. I
don't even know
I
if there's
came up with the
torture.
idea.
Yeah,
but
I don't even know if you will ever be tortured with this game.
No, I find this fun.
It's JP, show us what you've got for today's person for hint number 1. Okay, so the first hint for our random Philly of the day is that they are a 10-year veteran that played with 7 different teams. That silhouette is wild. Was that an action shot of them? I'm the silhouette analyst. That's the only thing I contribute consistently to the table. Although I got the last one right.
So to be pretty fair, this was an old grainy photo, not a lot of photos of this guy. So
okay.
I do see a grainy background. Okay, so this is an old photo, JP's saying. So how old are we talking, JP?
Nope, don't give her that. Don't give her that answer.
Right.
By the way, JP, I don't know if you know the rules and stipulations of this game. There's no wrong points off for wrong answers. So I'll guess every time. 10-year vet with
Another
7 teams, which means
vet.
he really didn't stick anywhere in particular.
A different team almost every year. That's insane. Yeah,
10-year vet.
Jeff is coming in hot with Carlos Santana. Chris Summer saying Whitfield.
I feel like it's too, with the graininess of the picture, it's too old to be Carlos Santana.
It's giving me beekeeper. Like the beekeeper.
All right, I'm gonna go.
We already did Antonio off on.
I'm gonna take a guess because I don't have an answer to this question. I'm gonna go Rico Brogna.
No.
If you got it on the first try, I would literally walk away, and never come back. Jose Mesa has been brought up as well. I don't have a guess. I'm going to pick a random name out of the chat, and I'm gonna just go Jose Rico.
I just guessed Rico Brogna. It's not Rico Brogna.
Wow, look at you two both guessing that. All right, I'm just going to say Jose Mesa just for the sake of getting a guess off the table.
Incorrect.
Okay, on to the next hint. Let's see if this one helps us out a little bit more. Hint number 2.
Wait,
Up. Just give me the name and I won't tell Tyler.
Where'd it go?
Pat Ryan said the silhouette looks like a Fanatic suit. Yeah, it's giving me... The only thing that's missing is the Fanatic's nose.
We've
got a lot of guesses though off of this one hint.
Yeah,
Barbara Carroll saying Vincent Vasquez, Van Bruthers, Padilla, that Jason and K-Red have guessed.
So I think JP, if you slide it above the last, whatever your next, there
we go.
There you go.
Okay. So this person was acquired in the 2002 free agency period by the Phillies, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Okay. So joined the Phillies in 2002 and is a 10-year veteran that played with 7 teams. Joe Tiz is saying Matt Stairs.
10 years is a lot for 7 teams.
That's a lot. Yeah. So I can't even try to figure out.
Is this Ricky Leday?
No way.
It's Ricky Leday, isn't it?
Ew. I don't like you.
That's
why you didn't. That's why you don't get the exciting intros. Are you joking?
There's no way.
Yeah, it was.
There's no way.
Okay, the next hint
Dude,
is
he hates the Phillies on Twitter.
Slandered the Phillies post-career on Twitter. Wow. And the final one is that they hit a game-tying home run early in year 1 at Citizens Bank Park. Year 1 of Citizens Bank Park, I should say. Everybody had great guesses. David Bell, Travis Lee, Pedro. But, of course, here comes Tyler. Tyler with Ricky Leday is correct.
Guys. I tried to throw them off.
Tyler plays these games in his free time, including on Thanksgiving. Just for context,
this is what I do for fun.
On Thanksgiving, as we were all off and enjoying Thanksgiving, Tyler was texting us about Which game were you playing that
The
day?
Immaculate Grid.
You were playing Immaculate Grid on that day. Like, this is what he does. This is what you do,
Listen,
Tyler.
it was Thanksgiving, right? And I probably shouldn't have said it to you guys because you were out with your families. I was
like, Tyler, I literally was going to, like.
I had my phone my phone in one hand and a baby in the other hand. And I'm like, I wasn't watching TV. He was sleeping. I didn't want to wake him up. So I didn't have TV on or anything like that. So I just had my phone and I was scrolling. And I was like, you know what? Let's play the grid. And I had an answer that like probably shouldn't have come up.
With his first child that was at the time a few weeks old.
My wife was sleeping.
Your first Thanksgiving as a dad, and you were playing Immaculate Grid.
Listen, I had nothing to do. I had one free hand.
There's plenty of things you can always be doing.
I had one free hand. I was sitting like this. He was like this in my arm, and I'm sitting scrolling.
Well, yes, as Barbara's saying, Tyler is amazing. Wow, Tyler Ray's saying, you know what, I'm going to give you Tyler.
Oh God! I'm gonna let you know I'm gonna fail miserably.
You don't get like frustrated. You're too good at this game.
I'm gonna fail miserably tomorrow.
I hope so. But yes, that silhouette was crazy of regular day, but it now makes sense of what we were looking at. The beekeeper vibe makes more sense. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Our trivia of the day, Ricky Leday. We had Jim Salisbury on with us to talk about the winter meetings and recap them. And of course, we had a chance just to be able to share our thoughts on Garrett Crochet and other names that have been linked to the Phillies. What will they do? Who will they be able to acquire? We don't know, but we're gonna continue to follow each and every day, 11 a.m. live here on PHLY Phillies. So for myself, Renee, and Tyler, Zuli, and JP,
I was gonna say, get JP in there.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll see you tomorrow for our Friday edition.
Check out the Union Show, 2:30.
Yes, 2:30 we'll be live for the Union, and we'll be live here tomorrow, 11 a.m. for the Phillies. All fun things coming up. See you next time, guys.
We all silly like the mayor.